But we're going to get to our big story of the day, which is focusing downriver. You know, the demo of those big DTE smokestacks in Trenton were supposed to come down this week. They've delayed that demolition process. It was supposed to be 2 phases, but the thoughts of what is going to be going in its place and more development along the waterfront is definitely moving forward. So with me now by Zoom is Jasmine Dancy, and she is with the Downriver Community Conference working on the economic development of the area. Jasmine, it's good to see you. Welcome back to the Daily Plus Live.
Thanks so much, Christy. Glad to be here.
All right, why don't you go ahead and fill us in? Since the last time we talked, you've had a lot of public comment about economic development downriver and specifically along the waterfront and what people would like to see there. How did those conversations go?
Sure. Well, I was happy to be on your show last month. We had a series of 2 public meetings happening. Those were about middle of January, one in Ecorse and one in Riverview. And we were so pleasantly surprised. We had about 100 people show up over the 2 days. And, the biggest thing that we took away was everyone's enthusiasm. Everyone was really excited, supportive. And there's just a lot of excitement around people wanting to see what's going to happen on some of these sites.
When we look at some of the sites and some of the money that it actually takes to be able to redevelop, talk about how some of the funding is coming in and the conversations that you might be having with some entities that say, look, I want to relocate downriver.
Yeah, so, we have our very successful brownfield redevelopment program at the DCC, Downriver Community Conference. So that's one of the biggest tools that we're looking at, but we're also working with a consultant who's going to be specifically seeking out a whole funding stack to really match up and incentivize development on these parcels that have been vacant or blighted for sometimes as long as generations. So we're really looking forward to matching up what the community is wanting and what is going to be feasible on those sites and find the funding to do it.
So we know that the stacks were supposed to come down tomorrow morning, and that got delayed, and it's going to be a 2-part series. Sometimes these things do take time, and it's been quite a while in the waiting for this. Is there any word on what will happen with the demo?
No, but the second phase of demolition is still set for May, so we are anticipating to hear of a revised date for this first phase fairly soon, I would think.
When we look at pictures like the stacks and so much of the industrial things that have come and gone in the downriver area, and that's really what people still have this perception of downriver and industrial, but there has been so much work going on in the last several years to try to turn and say we're open for some different kind of development and different kind of businesses to come in. How hard has it been to turn the dial in that regard and start a conversation about a different aspect of downriver and what can happen in the future?
I think there's a lot of attention on downriver right now. All of the people that we're bringing in and showing around at the different sites, they're starting to hear about downriver now. There's a conversation that is rolling at this point. So that to us is really encouraging that, the continued work that, our department and these other entities and the partners in the area have been doing over the course of years is finally starting to get some traction. So we are encouraged by that.
What is it like in terms of having those conversations to make sure that people are on the same page? Because pockets of downriver have had different, have had different forward thought about, well, we should do this here, we should do this here. The collaboration sometimes, instead of fighting for the different businesses that will come in, is a different tact.
Yeah, well, that's where I think the Downriver Community Conference is so well positioned, is that, we're not as big of a county. We're not looking at individual cities, as we have the opportunity to kind of look just outside of city boundaries and really bring these riverfront communities and all of the downriver communities together. So working with our riverfront strategy team for the 5 cities, River Rouge, Ecorse, Wyandotte, Riverview, and Trenton, we've done a really deep dive on strategic planning for economic development. And it's been so great to see some of those walls being broken down and seeing the collaboration between cities, looking and reaching out for their neighbors and really having a more collaborative, impact for the region. So, we are starting to see that.
Jasmine, what can you tell people who live in the area and part of the 5 communities you're concentrating on right now about their input? Are there going to be any more events, or what can you talk about coming up in the future that you'll be working on?
Sure. So, we had the first round of public meetings last month. And so now, using the feedback that we got from those meetings, and we're now going out, starting to talk to the different property owners on some of these larger parcels along the riverfront. And we're trying to see where they're at. And then as we're working together and trying to mesh these kinds of views, we're going to be putting together specific recommendations for each of these sites throughout the 5 cities. And what we're going to do is, at that point, about late April, is we're going to have another round of public meetings. So that's where we're going to come back to the public and say, here's what we think, looking at the market, looking at, what's feasible on the sites, and according to what, the public recommended, here's our best recommendations. And at that point, that's when the public can then chime in again and say, you got it right, or maybe you did, maybe we didn't. So at that point is when we're going to really want feedback on our specific recommendations, and then from that point we go on and kind of move forward and try to actually seek out the funding to make these projects happen.
Yeah, and have that really deliberate investment, so you're not just throwing things places, but there's a cohesive look, especially along the water and on the river, what people really want to see. Jasmine Dancy from the Downriver Community Conference, thanks so much for joining me and keeping us updated on everything that you're working on in the Downriver communities. We really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you again.